Hey, what's up, everybody? Trey Griggs here, Beta Consulting Group, and you are here for episode 58 of Standing Out, a daily podcast about sales, marketing, and leadership. If you would do me a favor, check us out at betaconsultinggroup.com. See how we can help you with your sales and marketing strategies, particularly with your branding, messaging, content creation, social media management, podcasting, all that fun stuff. We'd love to help you out with that as well. We're coming to you again from Hawaii. Day 4 in Hawaii. That's why the sun is just now coming up. This is not a backdrop. This is the actual setting where I'm at here out on the golf course here on the Kona Island, the big island here in Hawaii. Well, hey, listen, we've had a phenomenal week of shows already this week. If you missed a couple of them, you can always catch them on demand on LinkedIn or on my YouTube channel, anywhere else. We had a great conversation with Beth Carroll on Monday. Joshua Harrison, who's running that 100-miler coming up to raise money for the Ronald McDonald House. Had a great conversation with him on Tuesday, episode 56. My good friend Blythe Brumleve yesterday had a phenomenal conversation. Also talked about the TMSA. If you're not going to that, by the way, make sure you go to events.tmsatoday.org to check that out and register today. It'll be June 5 through 7 down in Orlando. It's going to be awesome. My good friend Kurtis Tryber coming up here in just a minute. Going to talk about what's going on over at EXO Freight and some other things in the industry. And then tomorrow, my good friend Sarah Barnes-Humphrey, founder of Let's Talk Supply Chain, is going to be on the show. So make sure you come back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. for another episode of Standing Out. Also, we're getting close to Friday. And as you guys know, that means that at noon, we got an episode of The Word on the Street with the Street Crew. And my good friend Eric Weedle of Doc 411 is going to be on the show to talk about what they're doing from the standpoint of providing transparency at shipping and receiving locations so drivers know what they're getting into when they go into and out of a location. So that's at noon. It's going to be a lot of fun. Have a great time on that call. If you've never made it to one of those, be sure to check that out at noon Central tomorrow, Friday, every Friday, for an episode of The Word on the Streets, powered by Beta Consulting Group. Also, a quick shout out to my sponsor, Tafts. These are the good guys in freight factoring. Check them out at tafts.com. They're helping carriers make sure they have all the resources to survive and thrive in any market. Make sure they have fuel discounts, tire discounts, small business loans, whatever they need to make sure that they're taken care of. And Tafts is all about educating carriers, and I love that. They want to make sure carriers know what they're getting into and have all the resources to make great decisions. And if you happen to be a freight broker, you can become a referral partner for Tafts and make sure that your carriers always have what they need. So check them out at tafts.com or click on the link that's going to be in the comments of today's show to go to my landing page directly and get started with Tafts immediately. All right, everybody, let's bring on today's guest. This guy is just a rock star in the transportation industry. I first met him. He was building some innovative technology, and now he is running one of the fastest growing freight brokerages in the space, doing some really cool things with open deck transportation. Can't wait to talk to him today. So everybody, welcome to the show, my good friend, Kurtis Tryber. Kurtis, what's up, brother?
Hey, Trey, how are you? Thanks for having me on.
Hey, man, thanks for joining. Always great to talk to you, man. It's been a little while. A lot of good things have happened. You guys have rebranded in the last 6 months, I think, something like that. And now about you just did a year ago. Sorry about that. Yeah, about a year. Time flies, man. I can't believe that. It's crazy. It goes really fast. But you also have some breaking news today. I saw it on Freightways today that you guys raised a little money. Talk a little bit about what happened there.
Yeah, I mean, so this was, ultimately the vision. When we started the company, we wanted to build something big, and we wanted to build it fast, and we wanted to have, essentially just a war chest behind us to really go above and beyond, just a traditional freight brokerage, right? So, to date, we've actually raised $16.5 million. So our most recent round was a Series A, which you just had on screen there. So we raised that Series A, with two really, really great new investors, really great partners. The first being who led the round, which is Left Lane Capital. They're out of Brooklyn, New York. Very, very hungry firm. It's a bunch of guys that are a lot like me, former Insight partners, but they've raised, a little over $2 billion for their two funds in just under 3 years. So you could just tell the level of conviction those guys have. Certainly excited to have them on our team because we're just as hungry. And then we've got another really interesting investor that followed on to that lead round, which is Detroit Venture Partners. So as you know, or as people know, we're building the main headquarters right here in Royal Oak, just outside of Detroit. And Detroit Venture Partners is unique. It's actually Dan Gilbert's personal fund. And so what was interesting there is, we really wanted to bring somebody into the fold that was, doing interesting things in the venture space, had a really great reputation. Dan Gilbert owns Rocket Mortgage and Rocket Companies. But I really wanted to build, that Detroit, just that passion for helping build this city, right? I feel like this city's always been sort of the comeback kid. And it's always sort of gone through a lot of highs and lows. And right now, as we grow, having people here that are local, investing in companies that are here, it just really creates a good flywheel from like a recruiting aspect, and just, sort of like us showing support, of the city that we're in. Right. So we just closed that round, and it's exciting. Now it's hiring, now it's growing, it's really just being able to deploy that capital in really smart ways to make sure we're on track for the big objectives that we have.
Yeah, no, that's really awesome to hear about that. And obviously, you guys doing some really cool stuff in the open deck space. And in Detroit, there, like you said, last 10 to 15 years, it's been a real comeback story, especially with companies investing downtown and starting to just spread out into the suburbs of Detroit as well, which is really, really exciting. But what I really want to talk about today is your leadership of this company. So when we first met, you were at a technology company. You were helping to build some really cool technology in the space. And then, and you had the freight brokerage was there. But then you decided to go all in on that and really build that up. And I want to talk a little bit about, you've always been a man of vision in my book, somebody who's always kind of had a clear idea of where they wanted to go. How are things lining up so far with the vision that you've had for EXO Freight? And has it changed a little bit along the way? Has it been pretty steady? What's that been like?
I think when we, and again, like when I was at my last company, we were building technology to help brokers just really level up their tech stack, right? And I don't think at that time this was really the goal. I mean, at that time it was really helping our customers at that company just become better brokerages. But from a vision standpoint, it became really clear after about 2 years that there really was this like underserved segment of the transportation market, and everybody, like I said, does it, but nobody really focuses 100%. I mean, and my vision was, okay, cool. I think we can, build some technology. We can be tech first, but we can also sort of focus on the shippers and the carriers that are in this underserved market. Like nobody's really building great tech for them. And so early the vision was, let's build the digital freight brokerage for open deck shipping. And that quickly morphed into, it was interesting, like building a brokerage, you think you're going to get customers, you're going to get your carriers. But what we quickly found is like, our customers from day one have all been enterprise, where it's been a function of, thank God you're here. Nobody else is really doing this exclusive thing for us. So there's absolutely a place for you in our network. And that has just transitioned the vision to, okay, great. I think there's a good fit here. How can we go above and beyond, right? And so, that's when we started to morph into not only just having a full execution focused brokerage, using the digital tools we create internally, but that morphed into, okay, there's a big section of our customer base that don't have a TMS. How can we support them above and beyond just moving freight for them? And then expanding on our carrier side, we're talking to all of our carriers who love the fact that we're building a business to support them directly, and we're getting freight that's specific to them, right? And so they're seeing the vision of partnering with us early will actually help, they'll get some long-term gains on their side as well, because supporting us just allows us to get more customers. So now we're diving, this year is really, really a big focus on, okay, carriers, the people that these are the guys that are working with us and gals that are working with us every day. Can we go above and beyond just giving them freight, right? Can we help them, run their business? And so from a vision perspective, and especially with this raise, we now sort of have the ability to make some bigger bets, right? Like we know we can move loads. We know we can execute for our customers. We know we can deliver for our investors on value creation there. How do we go bigger? How do we help even further? How do we get our tentacles into a bigger part of the space? And so I'd say from a vision perspective, we're right on track. I'd say, has it expanded quite a bit, even from 12 months ago? Absolutely. I mean, it's changing for the better almost every day at this point.
Yeah, and vision is something that needs to be a little bit fluid. Like there needs to be some commitment to it, some conviction to a vision, but also some flexibility to pivot with the marketplace. And I think you do that better than a lot of people. What was your evolution to learning the value of vision as a leader?
I think oftentimes people sort of, a lot of people have questions about, hey, what does the CEO do every day? Right. He's not really
right.
He's not in the trench with me, maybe booking a load or getting a shipper, getting a customer. Right. I see him in and out of meetings, but really, that is the role of the CEO. It is the vision. And it's really it's really my job to make sure, as I sort of put people on the bus, when they arrive and get on the bus, like I've got to pitch that vision to them every single day. Right. And, and I think that's a big part of how companies can grow fast. I mean, just keep your people bought in. If your vision's awesome and you can preach it every single day and you're excited about it, everybody that's in the company, whether they're doing even the lowest level operations job to the COO of the company, they can get behind that. And that it fuels growth. That's what I think the vision is really most suited for. And then even external from the company, get your customers bought in. As the CEO, it's great to go into a customer call, maybe towards the end of it or during onboarding, and making sure they're bought into the vision as well, because again, like, they can use anybody, right? But if they believe in what we're doing and they can get behind that, it sort of just aligns everybody. And then again, for our carriers, the same thing. I'd say the vision really is, that's my job. That's the CEO's job. And if I can do that well, then everything else should really start to line up and come to fruition.
Yeah, it's funny when you say that you always wonder what a CEO does. I always think that a CEO is like the conductor of a symphony. You don't get to play any of the instruments, but it's really important that you're there, making sure that everybody's in sync and unison, making a really beautiful sound. And that's kind of the job of a CEO. But, when you talk about vision, I think some leaders struggle with the constant communication of vision. Like, they might have a great vision, but sharing it over and over, like preaching that message over and over, not only to internally to employees, but also, like you said, to customers, to prospects. Like, just keep pushing that vision forward. It's so critical that that communication doesn't stop after you've had the vision or just a one-time thing. How do you incorporate that on a daily basis or a weekly basis, or maybe just a regular reoccurring basis to your team?
I would say, like, if you think about the daily duties of a CEO, like, that's like the top list on the top item on the list. But, it is challenging, right? Like, getting somebody pumped up or getting a company pumped up, like in a company all hands once a quarter or once a week, like, sure, that's like a very small bit of, juice to kind of pump people up for that Monday, Tuesday, but that tapers off, right? And so I think the way that I found, and again, I think there's many ways you could probably do it. We're a remote company. We've got a headquarters here in Royal Oak, so about half of our employees are here, and like the other half of the employees are not remote, or are remote, I mean. And so one of the things that I do is I make it a point to be here in Royal Oak like half of my time, right? And it just shows that, okay, we're preaching the vision, but he's actually here, and even my co-founder as well, Chris, he's here building the vision with us, right? And then for our remote employees, we do the same thing. We're constantly figuring out from a scheduling perspective, hey, how can we get you to Royal Oak? Like, what weeks work well, and we constantly want people in and out of the office here because, it's great to work remote, but if you need the vision, there has to be some collaboration. You have to bump into people that work at your company, and you have to sort of, just be around those folks. So we invest a lot in making sure that everybody's got company swags, sending out to them constantly. We've got constantly getting them to Detroit whenever they can to spend 4 or 5 days or a week out here with everybody. The really great thing about our office is next door. We have like a Hyatt hotel. So it's like, it's super easy to get people from the airport to the office. They've got a place to stay. So again, I think it's like, it's a constant battle, but it's like, you have to keep that going. And that's the daily job. Like, that's every day you have to execute on, how am I going to make sure the vision sticks? How am I going to get people pumped up? And, you have to invest in it. You have to want it. It has to be a line item at the end of the day.
Yeah, and being a California boy, those Detroit trips in the winter, that's quite the commitment, my friend, to be in Detroit in the winter.
It is, but it's not so bad. I think people give it a bad rap, but hey, sometimes 70 degrees and sunny gets a little boring.
Yeah, Detroit tends to be a little bit less violent than like Chicago. Chicago can be pretty crazy. Cleveland can get really snowy, but Detroit's kind of mild in that regard, so it's really not too bad. Now, you mentioned passing out swag to your team. That's something that I think is really critical, is to have, like your logo and to provide something really simple for your team that, might cost you 30, 40, 50, 60, $100 per employee, something like that. But the value of like giving something for the company, I think, goes a long way for leaders to kind of get behind that vision. It's a small gesture, but yet it's something really important. It's something they can wear over and over, and just kind of shows the logo all around. When you think about swag and you think about your brand, because I know that branding was really important to you. You rebranded from Power Only Transit to EXO Freight a year ago. Got it right now. What was the thought behind that, and what all went into that process of rebranding?
I think we were battling a few headwinds on branding, right? And I think in our space, you know it well, just as well as I do. When you're building sort of these digital enabled brokerages, you're battling the headwinds of, are you this or are you that? You've got people in this camp versus that camp. And when I say people, I mean customers, carriers, other brokerages, like everybody in the space sort of knows, where these digital players are, where the non-digital players are. And there's this constant sort of battle, I think, but the way that we wanted to think about our brand was, stemming from the name, who are we, right? So like the EXO like really does stand for something. It's not just 3 letters, right? It's the intersection of execution and optimization, right? And it's to portray to our customers that yes, we are a digitally enabled brokerage, but I assure you, there's 50 people sitting behind this glass wall that are dedicated every single day to make sure your freight is picked up and delivered on time. The digital tools are just to show you that we're innovating and we're different and we want to be better and we want to better serve you. But at the end of the day, execution is ultimately number one. The tools don't matter if we can't execute. So from a brand perspective, we wanted to be able to portray that. We didn't want a customer to have the fear of, hey, if we bring this new thing on board, what's the risk on my side, right? They deal with traditional brokers. What's the risk? What's the value of a digitally enabled brokerage? So that really was like a big thing that we thought about in the brand. And, even like for our carriers, the same, we wanted them to make sure that, hey, cool, they're building digital tools and they're always rolling out new products for them to use. But at the end of the day, like in every screen, there's still a person that they can, it's so-and-so and there's their phone number. They can always pick up the phone and talk to somebody, because in the open deck market, I always say that loads are basically like blind dates, where every load is different and you might have been sold a bill, something that when you arrive, so there's that level of trust that we also want to build with the carriers. And I think the brand it goes a long way in sort of thinking about that.
Yeah, open deck's a little different than the van just open the doors and backing up and letting somebody load the truck. It's very different. And drivers have more needs in open deck, and it's much more serviceable in that regard. But this is interesting to me because a lot of companies don't see the value of branding or of marketing at the beginning. And I mean, this was kind of a restart, I guess is the best way to call it, kind of a restart in a way from Power Only. But a lot of people don't see the value at the beginning necessarily. But you said this is like right out of the gate, this is important. This was like one of the first things that you did. Why did you put so much priority in that?
Well, I think it's just a function of, if we're going to come out and do something different, like we have to build a foundation from day one, right? And I would say I wouldn't say we're the best company at marketing. We're the best company at branding. I think a lot of companies in our space do it well, but I think you're right. A lot of companies don't do it at all, right? And I think, just understanding, and it kind of comes back to where you invest like your resources, right? Like everybody in our industry as they're making money, are they investing in hiring? Are they investing in technology? Are they investing in marketing? Are they trying to do a blend of both? And I think, the companies that really succeed in our space invest a lot in trying to tell the story. Hey, this is who we are. This is what we're doing. And if you're not doing that, how can you possibly expect people to know or care about it? At the end of the day, you're not getting in front of them. So why should they get in front of you, right? And so in our world, I mean, again, it's an industry that has a lot of ups and downs. There's been a lot of fluff and a lot of just different things in the industry that make it a little challenging. But we just wanted to come out with a clear vision. This is who we are. This is what we do. We're tech enabled. We've got people. We're execution focused, and ultimately, that's what's got us, I think, into some of the doors that arguably maybe we shouldn't be in, right? And there's a level of shipper and customer that we're able to get access to and work with that, frankly, even as a CEO of a smaller growing company like myself, I'm blown away that these people are giving us a shot, but for good reason. It's because we told the right story. We do something that they need. And at the end of the day, like, as long as we execute, it's a great fit for both of us, right?
Yeah, I think you said the right words. You told the right story. I think that's just so important. A lot of companies really struggle with that. For everybody watching the show today, this is Standing Out with our guest, Kurtis Tryber, CEO of EXO Freight. Give us a like or a follow. Appreciate you guys following along today. Kurtis, one thing I want to talk about as well is your leadership from the standpoint of hiring, because obviously when you're part of a fast-growing startup, you got to bring on the right people. And that's something that I think you've also been really good at, is networking and connecting and building relationships with some of the highest quality individuals in our industry. You hired Jake McLeod. You've had several other hires since then. I think you just brought on somebody else I think I saw recently, which is exciting. Talk a little bit about your thought process when you think about building a team. And you mentioned that analogy of the bus, of getting the right people on the bus, which is, a shout out to Jim Collins of Good to Great. But, getting the right people on the bus, getting them the right seat on the bus. What are some of your thoughts when you think about building your team?
Yeah. So, I think there's this, for me, I could do every job at this company, but that's obviously not a great fit from a scale perspective, right?
Right.
Very
a little difficult.
Yep. But the way that I've always thought about it, and especially, since we've got, a little bit of a war chest, it allows us a little more flexibility in this space that I think if we were, sort of just bootstrapping, right, is, I'm not in a position from a team perspective. What I'm not doing is hiring a bunch of generalists to do like general things, because then it's hard to understand where people are good at, where they excel. I've sort of taken a different approach where I'm always thinking about scale, and I hire a specialist to own that specific part of the business. And so, as I sort of thought about initial team building, thinking about Jake and some other people that I'll announce soon enough. But there's always been this, I map out the pillars, what do these people do and what do they own? And then if I don't have that person that doesn't, if I've got a pillar that doesn't have a person, it's my job to go find that person to own that, right? So thinking about our recent hire that we'll announce, our new hire that we just got coming on board next month is, our head of finance, right? This person is a rock star in the space. He understands venture-backed companies, but like his job is the finance role, like top to bottom, and he'll build his team of people underneath him. Thinking about like the capacity side of our business, I went and got a rock star, somebody that has been in the business, that knows the game, and he's built really big teams at very large companies, but it's about, starting from the top down. What I don't do is hire a bunch of people that are like, for example, on the carrier side, I'm not the guy that goes and hires a bunch of carrier reps and then gives them a boss. I always do it the opposite. I start with the boss and I go down and I let the boss build the team from there, because that is their part of the business and that's how they own it. And that's, sort of how we grow. So that's been a strategy I've always had. Find a specialist that fills the gap that I need. Once I have the specialist, I let them collaborate and work down from there.
Yeah, I think that's a really great approach to it, because, a lot of, especially with startups, it's the idea of like generalist versus specialist. Generalists can do a lot of different things. And a lot of times in a startup, you're wearing a bunch of hats, but you're really thinking long term. You're thinking down the road, hiring that specialist. And I love the fact that you're hiring the leader first, because it's more expensive. Your return is probably not as fast going that way. But from a long-term perspective, 2-3 years from now, you're going to be happy that you went that route, as opposed to hiring, like you said, maybe lower cost carrier sales reps, having to manage them yourself. And then at some point trying to hand that off to somebody who doesn't come in with ownership. They come in kind of taking over something that you built. And so I think that's a really interesting philosophy around that. And obviously it's been very successful. So I think that's cool to hear you talk about that, which is pretty cool. Now, you and your brother, Chris, you guys have been working together on this together, and you're twin brother. For those that maybe don't know, identical twin. So if you see them together, you'll don't take a second look. There's really two of them there. But you and Chris have been building this together. What has that been like to do this with your brother? To do it with family? Sometimes people say family business can be kind of crazy, but you guys seem to work really well together.
Yeah, and I think for us, like our professional career has largely been together. We started our first company together. We did our last startup in San Francisco together, and now we're doing this. But, we're really, again, thinking about the specialists and thinking about, people that own the certain sides of the business. Chris and I specifically understand that we're better together than apart. Here's the things I'm not good at. I'm not a finance guy and I'm not a full stack engineer. Guess what he is? A finance guy and a full stack engineer, right? But what he's not is sort of the operator and the salesperson that can build teams, right? Like, that's not a skill. Sure, he could do it, but is he an absolute specialist in that area? And am I a specialist? Maybe not, right? But I'm probably more suited for it than him. So for us, it's really not been a component of, push and pull, like who's going to be the CEO and who's going to be this. It's really been, hey, this is a lane that you're really good at. This is a lane that I'm really good at. Let's just run together. And so, again, we always, even in like hard times, right? Like, sure, sometimes we, it gets a little bit of attention. Sometimes I wouldn't say we fight, but I mean, there is, a little bit of a brotherly, rivalry
Sure.
there, I'd say. But at the end of the day, better together than apart. We're not going to build a great company walking the other direction. We're going to build a great company walking the same direction. And we always sort of keep that in mind. We always say, like, this is probably the last startup we'll do. So, like, let's get it right. Let's get it right this time. Let's make it happen. And let's let this be, an IPO, the next 50 years of our life. Right. And so I think just aligning on those visions and like those sort of objectives early on for us, that was like a must have. Now that we've got that in place, it's easy to move on from there because there is no my fault, your fault. Hey, this is your lane. This is my lane. Buck stops at you. Right.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. And again, you guys are just incredible guys. So anybody who knows you knows that you guys make it work and you do it in a tremendous way. How does that work with, from a leader perspective, with some of these high power leaders that you're bringing in? What's your leadership style with them? Are you spending a lot of time with them? Is it a once a week meeting? Are you letting them just run and kind of check in with you? How do you view leadership with these high power leaders that you're bringing in to fill those critical roles to really grow this thing over the next couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, so my approach is I wouldn't say like micromanaging, but we do a three times a week check-in. So it's the executives that sit in a room for 15 minutes on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and each person gets just a few minutes to give a quick bullet point of maybe where they're winning, where they're losing, and like maybe some blockers, and if they need help from somebody, right? And so that's really not a scenario where I do a lot of talking in that meeting. Right? That's a scenario for these people to sit down uninterrupted and say, hey, I need help from you on this, or I'm doing really well on this. And just to get a good pulse on everybody. So when we leave the meeting, there's never a, man, I wonder if that guy's actually executing, or I don't see that guy doing a whole lot. Everybody's really accountable. And again, I'm not doing a lot of talking in that meeting. I'm letting them sort of hold each other accountable to make sure they're all running the part of the business that they need. So that's the first piece. And I think the second piece is, again, these people are executives for a reason. They're in that job because they probably are really good at doing that job. So who am I to say, my carrier team or my head of capacity is doing it wrong? I mean, he's the expert and that's why he's there. So I really do, I try to also like not undercut my soldiers, right? If they're making a decision, it's their team. Like I've got to back them up and support it. But, we don't circumvent each other. Nobody can come from the bottom and come straight to me to circumvent a leader. It's got to be, the chain of command because, that's where you sort of like, people will get weary in the ranks if they know there's other ways they can get decisions, and questions asked. So, I mean, again, I think that's a really simple concept, but oftentimes in startups, it's very challenging because, I am the CEO and I am sitting next to the operations guy, so it's hard to understand what the level or the hierarchy is, but again, we just make sure that everybody knows where that, what job they're owning, what team they have, and everybody on that team knows that, hey, there's a chain of command here. And there's no reason to go beyond it because we're all on the same team, we're all going for the same goal, right?
Yeah, I love that. And, some leaders really struggle with that because, there's just like a control narrative to it, right? Some leaders just want to have control. But I think the really great leaders, I think like Steve Jobs, I remember he used to say, we don't hire people and tell them what to do. We hire really great people and have them tell us what to do. Exactly. And that's a level of leadership that acknowledges that there are experts. There are people that know things I don't know. I'm going to let them run and do their thing. But there's also that accountability because you're the CEO, like this is your ship, right? And you got to make sure that it gets where it needs to go. So there's a balance there that's always difficult, I think, for leaders to walk. You seem to be walking it very well, my friend, and I'm very excited for what's happening over at EXO Freight. Now, I got to tell you, we're at 30 minutes. I'm telling you, this goes by so fast every day. Absolutely flies by. Thank you for being on the show, man. Appreciate it. I hope you'll come back and keep us updated on what's happening at EXO Freight.
Absolutely. I definitely will. And, it's always good to catch up, Trey. So yeah, happy to come on, let's check back in 6 months. Maybe we'll have another big set of news to share.
I'm sure you'll have news before then, but that sounds like a great idea. And everybody else who's watching, thanks so much for being a part of the show today. For your comments, it's great to see everybody in the comments. And make sure you come back tomorrow for episode 59 with my good friend, Sarah Barnes-Humphrey, founder of Let's Talk Supply Chain. We're going to talk about how she's built a massive network and has a huge influence and a huge voice in the marketplace. So looking forward to seeing you guys then on another episode of Standing Out, a daily podcast about sales, marketing, leadership, powered by Beta Consulting Group. And thank you once again to my sponsor, TAFS. Check them out at TAFS.com or click that link that's in the comments today from Morgan to learn more and go directly to my landing page to get started with them. Everybody else have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks.